Afternoon, Cherries fans, and welcome to this latest show here on Up the Cherries in all departments. Before I welcome on my special guest, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. To find out what they can do for you, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. Now, the big question is, when we're going back into the Premier League, how do we get results against those big sides? And the big six, or big seven, as it might well be next season. Those consist, of course, of Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Spurs, and Manchester United. As well, we can probably throw Newcastle into that mix under Sir Eddie. To discuss Manchester United and that very topic, it is a pleasure to welcome on from Devils United, Maisy. Afternoon, Maisy. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really, really good. And thank you for joining us on this special show where we're going to discuss, firstly, Man United and what's going on there, but also how we actually beat some of the big sides in the league, because we've beaten everybody apart from Manchester City so far, which I'm sure you'll be hoping that we can actually get a first win against them next season. You know, fingers crossed. But being a Man United fan, I'm sure the relationship with Man City is not the best, is it?
To be honest, everyone always says my hatred for Man City is the worst, but I always class Liverpool and Leeds as a bigger rival than Manchester City, even though they're like my next door neighbours. I feel like the hatred for Liverpool and the hatred for Leeds grows a lot more stronger than Manchester City. I don't know whether it's because of with Liverpool, they're so neck and neck with us in terms of Premier League titles, and it's been there since the 80s, and you've seen it there with Kenny Dalglish, you've seen it with Sir Alex Ferguson as well. With Leeds, we know it's gone all the way back out of football, and it goes between the Lancashire and the Yorkshire situation. So I feel like with Manchester City, especially knowing that they've always been more the quieter club until I'd say around 2008 to 2010. And that's when we started seeing the best from Manchester City. And I feel like knowing that the other two rivalries has been there so much longer than Manchester City, I feel like that is probably why I probably class them as a bigger rival. But Manchester City is still a club who I would want to win against, of course, because they're still your rival club. But Liverpool and Leeds are probably the two rivals for me.
Let's be honest, everybody hates Leeds. Yeah, we're not particularly fond of them either, which, you know, I can no doubt talk about. In 1990, they caused a load of damage on a bank holiday Monday, and guess when we got them?
Oh dear.
Yes. So, yeah, we're not particularly looking forward to that fixture, but let's discuss Manchester United. So you have got a new man in charge, Erik ten Hag. Of course, it's been a bit of a roller coaster since that Sir Alex Ferguson left the club. You know, he had sustained success. There was the class of '92. You had the likes of Beckham, Giggs, the Neville brothers, you name it. Yep, Stam. Um, there's many more. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, of course, was in charge at the club. But how do you think Man United get back to that level under Sir Alex Ferguson? Or is it very, very difficult and you just got to evolve and do something a bit different?
I think at this point now, you look at the Premier League and you look at Liverpool and Manchester City.
Mhm,
You even look at where they're finishing in the league, the points they're getting, they're always so far ahead of all the other Premier League teams. Even when people are saying Chelsea should be winning the league with the team they've got, even when they've made all them signings like Thiago Silva and they're bringing Lukaku back, bringing Mendy through, Mendy through, they've still seemed so far away compared to
mhm,
Liverpool and Manchester City. And I feel like these teams are going to be so difficult to be on top of. So I think it is going to take a lot longer than it should have been. And I think this year has been the big, massive setback,
mhm.
especially knowing what's happened with Manchester United. So for me, it's harder to say we need to get to their level. I think we do need to do a little bit more something different. And I think Ten Hag has that little bit more different compared to the other managers we have had at Manchester United. I'm not
Yeah.
discrediting none of the other Manchester United managers because they've all been great in their own way. And I do believe some of them should have had more time because they could have got all the way if we really gave them that time and given them that funding. David Moyes, I think that he was far too early coming to Manchester United. I think that
Mhm.
he needed some experience in different clubs before coming to Manchester United, because from going to Everton to Manchester United with so little experience, it's a big, massive jump for an inexperienced manager like himself at the time. If he went to West Ham first, for instance, like what he's doing now, then come to Manchester United, I think it would have been completely different for David Moyes. Louis van Gaal, terrific manager. He's won us the FA Cup before he got the sack, but he had a half-built team. And if that team was fully built to way that Louis van Gaal wanted it, he wanted Lewandowski, for instance. I know that is a long shot, but he still wanted Lewandowski to be in his striker role. He wanted Marco Reus as another option in the midfield. And I think if we went for them kind of options rather than picking up the cheaper options, we could have gone all the way there with Louis van Gaal eventually. Jose Mourinho, another terrific manager, probably considered for me one of the greatest managers of all time, along with Sir Alex Ferguson. Busby, not saying Manchester United best,
Mhm.
but in terms of everything he's done in terms of his whole career. Um, he had a half-built team and he wasn't getting the backing he wanted. He never wanted like the likes of Dalot at Manchester United. He didn't want the likes of Wan-Bissaka at Manchester United. He didn't personally ask for them kind of players. He wanted other players at Manchester United. And if he had that kind of backing, because he won 2 trophies just in his first season, got second in his second season. So if he had the backing in the third season, we could have potentially gone all the way and won more trophies. So I think in them kind of respects, we should have done a lot better. But I think
Mhm.
with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, as much as what I think he's done well, I think that there was parts where I think you shouldn't have bought them players. They're not suited to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's play. Like Donny, for instance, he wanted Jack Grealish,
Mhm.
but he got Donny. And then you look at the likes of he's bringing in Cristiano Ronaldo. Did we truly need Cristiano Ronaldo? And I love Cristiano Ronaldo, but did we really need him knowing that we had Edinson Cavani? Should we have gone
Mhm.
and got a younger striker so when Edinson Cavani is injured, we got that young striker there? And there's some deficits there off the board, which I know is now shuffled, so we haven't got them people on the board anymore. But look at it now, we've got those signings under Eric Ten Hag. But I think Eric Ten Hag, compared to the other ones, he's a younger manager.
Yeah.
He's had experience himself in the board, so he knows how it works, and he's got a big voice into that Manchester United team. He's happily to go on and say, you're doing crap. You run. He'll happily tell the players, he'll happily tell the Glazers, he'll happily tell the board what he wants. And I think the difference is compared to them other managers, he wouldn't wait to get sacked. He would walk if he isn't happy at Manchester United. And that's the kind of attitude and the face you want from a manager like Erik ten Hag. And I think knowing that he has that kind of bit of a threat into him, it should make the board and the owners think, right, we do need to get something different here now.
One person that I did think, was probably sacked by Man United too early was David Moyes, because I think, he did do a good job with Everton. He got them up to 4th. He nearly got them into the Champions League. He come from pretty much nowhere. And I know that it was Preston, wasn't it? He was in charge of beforehand. I think, he deserved probably a little bit more time. And he was a Ferguson manager, wasn't he? He was a man that Ferguson felt would do a good job once he left.
Mm-hmm. With David Moyes, actually, he was actually quite low down of who people wanted, because initially Sir Alex Ferguson wanted Pep Guardiola and Klopp to take him through. Even Jose Mourinho was considered, but none of them wanted to be at Manchester United just because it's the manager after Sir Alex Ferguson. So the expectations compared to the second manager after Sir Alex, the third, the fourth, the fifth, so on and so on, the expectations will nowhere near be as high, because that squad, what David Moyes had, that was still the squad what won the Premier League under Sir Alex Ferguson. So I think people are expecting David Moyes to do the exact same, especially knowing that we've had so many years success. They automatically think, right, we've got David Moyes here, we've still got Vidic here, we've still got Patrice Evra here, we've still got Michael Carrick, we still got Wayne Rooney, we can still win the title. And I think knowing that the expectations are still so high, I think that for a manager like David Moyes, even though he's done a good job of what he had done, I think he was in a lose-lose situation. And I think that would have been the same with whatever manager was going to be the first manager under Sir Alex Ferguson, just because the expectations were still so high compared to the other managers who came out later on.
Do you think the Solskjaer should have had a little bit longer and maybe till the end of the season, instead of bringing in Ralph Rangnick?
You look at Ole, and I actually don't think we would have been in a worse situation keeping him till the end of the season. I think with Ole, what they should have either done is they should have sacked him after that Europa League final loss, because it was a disgusting loss, and it should have never have gone to penalties. We should have not waited for the 100th minute to do a substitute. And then you look at the likes of you look at when there was the 2-week break after Manchester City. That could have given 2 weeks to find then a permanent manager. We could have bought Ten Hag out of his contract. We could have bought Poch out of his contract. Conte was actually available then. So we could have even got Conte. And then even if we kept it till the end of the season, I don't think we would have done a worse job, because he knows how that team works, unlike Ralph. Ralph, just like all the other managers we've had, plays a completely different way to how the team plays, or how all the different managers played. And knowing that we've had signings, we have Sir Alex Ferguson signings, where every single manager, there's still signings in there, and the squad is so unbalanced. So Ralph coming in with the pressing type of football, which none of the players don't like doing, minus Fred and Cavani, it's going to be always a struggle for that Manchester United team, especially knowing that they feel like they've had it a little bit more easier, because they've said that training that they've had is quite easy and they don't like playing in the dark, apparently. So I think it was a bad decision putting Ralph through, and I think they should have just automatically put him through in the board, because I think it would have been a much better situation. But now we've sacked him from the board, we're back at square one again.
Of course, Ten Hag is a well-known manager. He's done a good job at Ajax as well. And, surely this is the season where Man United do start to turn it around. There's a lot of rumours of players that are going to be going into the club. But there's going to be players as well that, of course, you've let go of and not renew their contract. So, for example, Pogba, which, to be honest, was a crazy signing in the first place, from my perspective.
Yeah, I think the players who we have let go of, the only two misses for me was Emmanuel Matic, just because he is the only proper CDM we have at the club, and Juan Mata, just because of how Juan Mata is on and off the pitch. He's a pure gentleman, he's a good representation on the field and off the field for Manchester United. He's at that representation for the younger players to look up to. And I think apart from that, the other players who we've let go of, Paul Pogba, Jesse Lingard, Edinson Cavani, I don't really see as a loss. Because Edinson Cavani overall, he's had over 38 games injured in 2 seasons. And we don't want that kind of player at the club. Paul Pogba, I just think everything's just been all up and down with Paul Pogba, and the price that we have paid him for, you expect more than a handful of games in 5 years, having 16 different injuries compared to his 2 different injuries at Juventus. That raises a lot of alarm bells, and I know it questions to a lot of Manchester United fans as well. I think with Jesse Lingard, the club, the fans liked him just based off he got the winning goals in our cup finals. He had that memories there at Arsenal. So I think that in that kind of respect, he would be missed. But the way he was at the end of the season with his brother and the fact that he didn't want to be at the club, we should have let him go the summer before and let him go to West Ham. And I think that having these fresh players gone, it's in a way a good thing, because the wage bill is so much lower now, because Paul Pogba and Edinson Cavani, Jesse Lingard was on sky high wages, so that allows us to get a player who we can. I don't like overpriced players, but we can allow to give a player a little bit more wages. Like, we know how much Frankie de Jong is on. He's on quite a lot of wages. And I think if we kept them players, we would have struggled a lot more to give him them kind of wages compared to what he's got at Barcelona.
What would you say is a good season for Man United next year, considering the changes?
I think what Ten Hag has already said to Manchester United, he's got a plan here. So he's got a 3-year contract. So I'm presuming he's already said that by the time it gets to the end of the season, we'll be in the Champions League. That's what he said. So it's either us getting into top 4, getting the Champions League that way, or doing the Europa League route, which Jose Mourinho did in his first season. For me, I think if I was going to pick the easiest option, it's going to be based off how the other teams have got their signings. You look at Tottenham with their signings so far, with Perisic, Bissouma, I think, and they've got getting Spence from Nottingham Forest. So I think they're going to be quite hard to compete with as well, depending on how well their signings play under Conte. Arsenal have made a fair few signings of Gabriel Jesus. They've signed a player from Porto who's recently won the league. So I think if their teams and their players play as well as that they hope to be, I think it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle for us to get into top 4. So I think that if you're looking at them kind of situations, but maybe the Europa League route might be a better option. But if we get the right signing, so if we get Frankie de Jong, we get another defensive midfielder to go alongside him, plus a striker, a right back, there's no reason why we can't technically compete for top 4 either.
I've got to be honest, we're probably competing for 17th and slightly above that, to be fair. But the last time we were in the Premier League, we did get some brilliant results. So, of course, we've got a fantastic track record against Chelsea. There was the 4-3 win against Liverpool. We beat Spurs 1-0. Yes, they did have a couple of players sent off. Of course, we had a great result against Arsenal. And also, we have beaten Manchester United a couple of times as well. So, the secret really is to how do we actually compete against those top teams? Because the way I look at it, there's two separate leagues. You've got the teams that we, should hopefully be getting something of. So the Nottingham Forests, the Fulhams. You could throw into that Leeds as well. Hopefully, we'll get 6 points off them. That'd be nice.
Easy 6 points.
Easy 6 points. There we go. A whole of Manchester's behind us for that one. The Brentfords, those sort of teams are the teams that we are hoping to get the points off. But anything against the top six is really a bonus. And in that, and actually, you could probably say it's a top seven now, because I think Newcastle will be in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that consists of Man City, Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Spurs, and I think Newcastle now as well. But how do we play against those sort of teams, considering the amount of pressure we're going to be under, the youngness of our side as well, maybe a little bit of inexperience as well, because we are quite a different side from the team that was relegated. We have got Billing in there, we've got Lewis Cook, we do have Adam Smith at the back, but how do we get the points off those teams?
You look at the newly promoted teams over the past couple of years, Leeds, Brentford, they have Liverpool in the first games against them actually have struggled against them. So I think in that kind of way, you can take that into your favour. I think when you look at Brentford, for instance, let's just get away from Leeds, but with Brentford, when they do play against different teams, they adapt. They change the formation. They adapt compared to depending on who they play against. And I think that's exactly what Bournemouth need to do to be successful. You need to adapt to whoever you're playing against. We know Leeds have never been like that. But when they played in the first season, they never lost a game at home against the Big Six. So you look at that kind of factor and think, maybe they took a lot of teams by surprise with the attacking kind of play that Bielsa had, and it definitely took me by surprise. Even though I don't like Leeds, I enjoyed watching it. It's an enjoyable kind of football to watch. But I think with Bournemouth, when you do come into the likes of Liverpool, for instance, you need to be that counter-attacking football. And I think the way you do get them goals from Liverpool, for instance, is that you need to exploit the right-hand side, because you look at the games where they have lost. I know they've only lost 2 games this last season in the league, but they lost a couple of games in the Champions League. They've conceded a few goals in the Champions League, and you look at them kind of where they've been exploited, and it's always been on the right-hand side. And I think exploit the right-hand side is always a key factor for playing against Liverpool, and I say that we should be doing the exact same. I don't like adapting myself to different teams, but I think even we should be doing that against the likes of Liverpool and Manchester City. We have done that before against Manchester City, and we got a win. It was at that point where before last season, Dan James had more wins at the Manchester Derby wins at the FA than Pep Guardiola. That was the stat that was about. So it shows how much the club and the team adapted to playing against Manchester City, and I think that's what you need to do with Manchester City as well. I think the way you should play against Manchester City is the way Crystal Palace played against Manchester City this season. Because Manchester City did not even pick up a win against Crystal Palace this season, and that was one of the only teams to do that against Pep Guardiola. Picked up 1 out of 6 points, and that's a terrific achievement for a new manager into the Premier League of Patrick Vieira. So that's what I think. You need to be a bit more adaptable when it does come into the likes of Liverpool and Manchester City. In terms of Chelsea, they do like that bit of possession, but I think even at times the passing can be quite sloppy in the midfield. And it's going to be interesting for me on what they're doing because they haven't done anything yet, just like us in this transfer window. They still need to get 2 centre-backs because they've lost Christiansen, they have lost Rudiger. So what's going to happen there is their defence going to be a lot worse than what it has been in the past. But I think there is that kind of sloppiness at times in the midfield with Jorginho and Kante, and that's where I think teams need to exploit, and that's what Manchester United have done, because we know that the wing backs are so strong of Reece James, Chilwell, so we never know. You can't go wide with them. But going through the middle with Chelsea, I think it works a whole lot better in trying to get a result. We've seen it when we got a 1-1 draw at Stamford Bridge, where when we nicked that ball off Jorginho and we got the goal. So I think that works. We got the double over Tottenham, which was probably only one of the teams we did. And I think with Tottenham, the first game we completely dominated them at their ground. They didn't even get a shot on target. That was how bad Tottenham was. But under the same breath, they didn't have Conte. They had Nuno. And I think Nuno was in a losing situation, knowing what was going on with Harry Kane as well. And the atmosphere of the team wasn't the best. So I think he was in a losing situation coming into Tottenham, plus the signings he did have. So we completely dominated them, but we actually adapted. So we changed our formation. We went to 3 at the back, and it worked. But when we played under Conte, it was a lot more tighter game than it should have been. And I think the only reason why we was able to get that win is because they was making them silly fouls on us, and that cost us to get the win. Whereas we was quite silly in terms of giving them a penalty. If that wasn't the case, we could have probably won a bigger margin, a better margin, like it could have been 3-1 instead. But I think that with Tottenham, they can be quite silly at times with the tackles. We've seen it with Holsberg, even though he's brilliant. I like him. I think he is. His tackles are quite not great. But if I was going to be playing against Tottenham, the players you need to isolate and not give the time on the ball would be Son, because of his pace, and also Kulusevski, because you look at Kulusevski from coming into the Premier League, he has been outstanding, and I know Conte is wanting to put him on a permanent. And if that's the case, I think it's going to be a lot more difficult to win against Tottenham. So I think if you are able to isolate them type of players, and as much as I don't like it, but irritate some other players, it awards you some free kicks, and it gives you the Bournemouth that a little bit more advantage. And Arsenal are just Arsenal.
Arsenal, yeah.
It's so inconsistent. Sometimes they can play so well, sometimes they can play so bad. If they play like how they did against Newcastle, anyone's got a chance of winning against Arsenal. But if they play like how they played against, for instance, us in that second game of the season, where they completely dominated us, but we wasn't at our best, it's hard even to beat Arsenal, because even Manchester City, for instance, was so lucky to get a win out of Arsenal because they were that good on the ball. They adapted to Manchester City, but I think Arteta kind of knows how Pep Guardiola runs, so I think that helps him a little bit. But I think you'd be able to take him by surprise a little bit, because he can be a little bit iffy.
Of course, we do have a little bit of inside knowledge of what Newcastle's going to do. Of course, Eddie Howe is there, a club legend here at Bournemouth. And let's be fair, he did a fantastic job last season. If you take out the games under Steve Bruce, they would have finished just behind both Man City and Liverpool. And that's why I think they're going to be in that top. Well, it's going to be a top 7 personally. and I think they're going to be really, really difficult. But I guess that would you say that they're a little bit of an unknown quantity for the rest of the Premier League at the moment?
Yeah, I think at the moment they've got a plan, just as Manchester City had a plan and Liverpool had a plan. I can see the kind of players that they brought in. They've recently brought in Botman from Lille. You've seen that they brought the experience there of Kieran Trippier. So I think in them kind of respects that they are a bit of the underdogs, but looking at the squad that they do have, are they able to compete for top four? Probably not. But if they continue to adapt to the league, build their team up more and more, there's no reason why in two, three seasons time they can't go into that top two kind of race. I think with Newcastle, they need to walk before they can run. So I think their next aim now needs to be Europa Conference League. I know people think, well, what's the Conference League? But you look at Bournemouth, for instance. Yeah. I'm sure you would absolutely love to be in that Europa Conference League, even though you think it's the only Conference League. For you, probably, I would absolutely love to be in it.
Most definitely.
Yeah, and I think that would be the same as Newcastle. I think that's their next stepping stone, because they've been out of Europe for so long, because they've been known in the past to be so dominant in the 90s, early 2000s, actually being in the Champions League, to having no European competition, to being relegated. I think they would be absolutely thrilled to get that Conference League as that next stepping stone. And I think Eddie Howe has been absolutely brilliant as a manager. What he's done so far, he's been very good in this rebuild. I do wonder though, like, will he be the manager who takes them all the way up to the Premier League title? I do question, will they make a change eventually? But I think when a manager is doing so well, there's no reason why you shouldn't change a manager.
I guess it's one of those things where, and when he first took over, Maisy, I thought it was a bit of a poison chalice. I thought because Steve Bruce had left it in such a terrible position, they had all this money to spend. They had, yes, he could probably spend a bit, but I couldn't see at that point how they were going to get out of that. And I thought, well, if he scrapes 17th, I think he's done his job. But what he did after that was phenomenal, really. It really was. And I think it's going to be a top 7, but I completely agree with you. We would absolutely love to be in this Conference League. Somehow, I guess everybody dreams of doing a Leicester, don't they?
Yeah, of course. I think Leicester, though, they had you look at that squad, you would ever think that is a Premier League title squad, but Ranieri made that team so good. But the thing is, with Leicester, they got caught out a lot the following season because they didn't really change things up. And I think Eddie Howe, in that respect, needs to be careful. If he stays of how he played in the second half of the season, that is going to get he may potentially drop some points against some teams. So in that respect, he needs to be extremely careful in what he does. I was expecting, though, probably a couple more signings by now from Newcastle. I know it's still early days, but he needs, I think, pre-season for Newcastle is going to be vital on what they want to do for this Premier League season, because I think you can never stay the same in the Premier League. That is why there was that downfall there with Burnley, why they got relegated. If they ended up changing things around, getting younger players through, they could have stayed up into the Premier League. I think Sean Dyche is a brilliant manager, but he kept the same thing for years and years and years, and that cost him eventually. And as a manager of Eddie Howe, he wouldn't want the exact same to happen. Bielsa, that happened to him. He kept that same attacking ways, and that cost him. And Leeds nearly got relegated due to that. So I think he needs to be adaptable in every year of the Premier League coming up to be successful into the Premier League. And I think that's why you look at the likes of Sir Alex Ferguson. He adapted to every single decade he's been in the Premier League, the 90s, 2000, 2010s. He adapted to every single one, because the Premier League in the 90s, 92 to the Premier League in 2013 is a completely different type of Premier League. So
Yeah.
the way that he was able to adapt to that, to get the right players in, it just shows the kind of manager that Sir Alex Ferguson is. I'm not saying, of course, that everyone needs to be like a Sir Alex Ferguson, because everyone's different. But if you're a manager who is adaptable and to bring them right players in to suit your squad, not as a one to just take away from Premier League rivals, for instance, it doesn't always work. We're seeing it with Chris Wood with Newcastle. They've done that to disadvantage Burnley, but they didn't really advantage Newcastle by them either. So I think they need players that suit the club and suit Eddie Howe's style of play.
I think with Eddie, and what he did here was, it was always a case that we would be very attacking. We'd score one more than you. That was his approach. I think in that last season, he did shore up the defence a little bit. Probably made sure we were a little bit better defensively. We wasn't as attacking, wasn't as forthcoming, and I think that, at points in that last season that we were in the Premier League, we struggled because of that. I don't blame him at all, because, of course, that was the COVID year, and had COVID not happened, we'd recently, before that, got beat by Liverpool just 2-1. We actually went ahead through Callum Wilson in that game, and we drew 2-2 against Chelsea, and really should have won that one. So I think with Eddie, he has got a style of play that is trusted on. But I would say that if he goes more defensively, I think it's more of a disadvantage. I think he's a great attacking manager. With Arsenal, for example, they are a very interesting one. Like you say, they're completely inconsistent. You don't really know what you're getting from them. Like in the mid noughties, that you had Patrick Vieira, Thierry Henry, Perez, all playing there, and it was an unbelievable side to watch. Of course, Man United had their fair few run-ins with Arsenal, didn't they, during that time? Do tell us a little bit more about that, and those years, because of course it was in both Ferguson and Wenger's heyday, really.
Yeah, it was like the 90s and in the early 2000s where we've seen that little bit of rivalry there. I think because you look at Sir Alex, you look at Wenger, they were so similar at that time, because the Premier League was so new and they was both competing so well. It was always Manchester United, Arsenal who was in the run-ins, who was always in that top two. So you're seeing that little bit of rivalry there, you're seeing that little bit of snapping, but you could feel the rivalry in the actual stadium in itself with the fans, because we hated Arsenal, they hated Manchester United, and Arsenal still hate us now, so many years later. But I don't particularly hate Arsenal, because I feel like that rivalry died down once Sir Alex left Manchester United. I think it really died down afterwards, and we've seen, like, you look at Patrick Vieira and Roy Keane, the two of the best defensive midfielders in Premier League football, and they were both captains, they were both hot-headed, and they had that little bit of a sniping there in the tunnel. We always used to say who would win out of Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira. I always said it'd be Roy Keane, even though Patrick Vieira was so hot-headed, he was so fierce. He was a brilliant captain, don't get me. He was probably one of the greatest Premier League captains of all time. But Roy Keane, once you have started with Roy Keane, he will not stop. And I think that is the thing with Roy Keane. He always wants to be one above everybody else, and that is, even now you can tell he has that little bit of rivalry with Patrick Vieira, because there was a video where you see someone say, Roy, where's Patrick? And then he exploded and goes, where's Patrick Vieira? And he went, in my pocket. So even now he's saying Patrick Vieira's in his pocket many years later. But I think one of the memories what I had of the rivalry for Manchester United was under the Ruud van Nistelrooy days. Ruud van Nistelrooy, probably for me, the greatest ever striker we've had at Manchester United, above Eric Cantona, above Wayne Rooney, even though he's our top goal scorer, above Robin van Persie, just because of the kind of striker he is. He's an out and out striker. He you know that if you had Ruud van Nistelrooy in front of you, it's going to be a rare chance he would miss. That's how brilliant he was. And I think since he left, we was completely missing a striker. Even with Robin van Persie, we felt that little bit of a miss because of the goal tally that Ruud van Nistelrooy produced. But you could them rivalries back then. I remember a memory where you could. It was getting a little bit heated up in the game, and it was during the invincible season of Arsenal. What a horrible year that was. But they was actually winning against us, and we got a penalty. Ruud van Nistelrooy took the penalty, and he missed. And all the Arsenal players were shoving him, like trying to personally attack him. And you could see that bit of a rivalry there, and I love Ruud, and that made me angry to think, don't dare touch Ruud. That's my player kind of thing. But what I loved is that we got rid of their unbeaten record, and that was the penalty of Ruud van Nistelrooy's, because he had a penalty afterwards on the next game of the following season. It was around October time. He scored a penalty, got rid of their invincible record, and I think that is the kind of rivalry that you do miss, because you never will see that kind of rivalry ever again. I know people are comparing Pep and Klopp rivalry. I was like, what kind of rivalry is this? There's not a rivalry. They're hugging after the game. Like, you would not see Wenger and Sir Alex Ferguson hugging after one of them type of games. There'd be no way. I think now they would do that because it's outside of football, and Sir Alex even said that he respects Wenger for everything he's done at Arsenal. He even got him a trophy to congratulate him for what he's done at Arsenal. So I think he did respect him, but at that moment in time, he'd always put the club and the rivalry before friendships, and that's how it should be. And I think that's what's missing in this day and age of football. You don't see that manager rivalry anymore.
I don't think you see it on the pitch either. You don't see those players like Roy Keane. You don't see the Vieiras, Vinnie Jones, Dennis Wise, those sort of players with a little bit of an attitude behind them. Duncan Ferguson was the big one. You never knew what he was going to do, to be fair, did you, when coming up against Everton?
Yeah, even Eric Cantona, like, you would not want to mess with Eric Cantona, that's for sure. Because, I think what was special about Cantona in itself is the squad that we had was so young. We had all the class of 92 through there, and he was the experienced player, and he was, even though he had his moments, Eric Cantona, with kicking the fan and stuff, but he had the moments of him where you look at him and think, only Eric Cantona could look like that and it still look cool. Like, that goal he scored and he just went like that. Like, only Cantona could do that and he would look cool doing that. No other player could pull off what Cantona could do. And I think that having that kind of player who is so hungry to win all the time like Cantona, you need that. And I think he was that push for us to be so dominant in the Premier League from the early 90s.
Yeah, most definitely. When we look at last season and the teams that went down, of course, Burnley were fairly established in the Premier League, but Watford and Norwich both lasted one season. Let's start off with Norwich, because I think Watford are a complete and utter basket case, aren't they? Let's be fair. Say it as it is. Say it as it is. And by the way, Watford fans, if you're watching, local man is happy at this moment in time. I don't know if you're aware of this, Maisy.
I don't think I am, if you want to explain on it.
Yeah, so basically, Jefferson Lerma has had a run-in with Watford throughout the years,
Oh.
and yes, they printed off some shirts for sale at Vicarage Road with "Local Man is happy" or "pleased," I think it was. They changed the words for some reason. Um, Sold them all, of course, and then what they've done since is get relegated. So yeah, I had to put one out. Local Man is sad for them. So they don't sell that one at Vicarage Road, unfortunately. But yeah, Local Man is very very happy at the moment, seeing as Watford's gone down. But diverting off, Norwich. So they are a team that, it sounds quite fun, yo-yoing between the Premier League and the Championship. Does sound quite fun, but there's no guarantees in it. And what did Norwich do wrong from the very start?
I think for one is lack of investment. I think
Hmm.
when you are coming into the Premier League, the Championship and the Premier League, as much as you're playing less game in the Premier League, you're playing at a higher, more intensity with the teams you were playing against. And I think that you need that little bit more investment into the team. You need experienced players and a mixture of youth players. And I think Daniel Farke, he didn't take, for instance, Billy Gilmore to his true potential. I don't think he didn't hardly use him, which is a bit of a disadvantage as well. And I think with Norwich, they've always been the same of what they come up to the Premier League. They don't invest in the squad. They'll get relegated. And because their squad is a brilliant Championship squad, but not a good Premier League squad.
Yeah.
You need to show coming to the Premier League. I am a Premier League club, and I want to invest like a Premier League club. I know all teams are going to be completely different on how they invest, but you look at the likes of Patrick Vieira. He's used loan players and he's managed to get mid-table. And if you use your loan players effectively, you get the right loan players. There's no reason why Norwich couldn't have got out of relegation. I think Daniel Farke, though, he didn't do the club any favours whatsoever with how he played. So I think that was the best option for them going forward. In a way, I think Dean Smith was in a lose-lose situation coming into that Norwich squad. I think he's a brilliant manager. He's so good at helping youth players. But I think that in that way, if he should have aimed that little bit more higher, because he got Aston Villa very good in the squad that he did have, and I think going to a much bigger challenge such as Norwich, it's so much more difficult. I think though, if they kept with Daniel Farke, they would have been relegated a lot more earlier, in my opinion. But it's interesting because keeping Dean Smith, it'll be interesting to see on if he will get investment coming into the Premier. I think they'll get into the Premier League next season anyway, so that's what they always do.
They'll do it again.
They'll do it again and again, but it's a matter of will they do something a little bit different with Dean Smith, because Dean Smith has had investment at Aston Villa. When he's had investment, he works. So will Norwich, even if they don't buy players, will they get the right loan players for Dean Smith to keep them into the Premier League? And that is going to be a big question with Norwich. I'm one of these people who go, right, after they've been promoted so many times in a row, they shouldn't get promoted. I like other teams to get a chance and an opportunity. And when you're getting Norwich, Watford, who are doing the same every 2 seasons, it's not fair on the teams who have done well in the Championship, who are building to be a Premier League club but can't get into the Premier League because of them type of teams. And you look at, for instance, I think it's Brentford got through. I think it's great that Bournemouth have come through again after a while. It's good that also that Leeds have got through, even though they're like Leeds, and because of the rivalry and just because they're a little bit more different. We've not seen them in a long time, and the exact same there for Nottingham Forest. They've not been in the Premier League since 1999, so I like them bit of opportunities. And I think it's fair for a team to have the opportunity to do well. Because you look at, for instance, Swansea. Could they
Yeah.
do it if they got through? And they've done it before. Swansea, they could do something. Sheffield United, you look at their first season in the Premier League, they done outstanding. So there's no
Yeah.
reason why Sheffield United couldn't do it again. But you look at them two clubs; they're preventing clubs like Swansea and Sheffield United to have that new opportunity again.
I've got to be honest. I think, and it's funny you mentioned Swansea. I think Swansea will win the Championship next season.
Wow.
I think Swansea will win the Championship next season because when we played them, they were very, very good going forwards. I think Russell Martin, the manager there, is probably going to have to sort out the defence, but I think he will do. And I think they will be very, very good next season. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them very soon. Let's complete the picture. Let's talk about Watford.
Ooh.
How long we got? I don't know.
All afternoon, me.
Yeah, we got go. Let's go for it. Yeah, so they are what I would say is a complete and utter basket case. So they've changed their managers. Was there one season where they got relegated and they changed their manager 4 times?
They've changed it 3 times just this season.
Yeah, exactly. It's bonkers. And now they've got a manager from Forest Green Rovers who I don't know why. I think he should probably stay at Forest Green, probably a lot safer. But he's probably going to be gone by October. But somehow they seem to get themselves out of the Championship, but they just seem to be completely unsettled.
Yeah, I think the differences between Watford and Norwich is that Watford, their team is so more imbalanced in the way that it feels like they've got no defenders, but they've got like 9 strikers on the pitch. And I think that's the way Watford is. Whereas with Norwich, they've got a bit of players somewhere at least. Whereas I don't see that with Watford. I'm actually surprised that Watford didn't finish bottom of the league. The thing is with Watford, they'll either beat you at a high margin, or you'll get battered at a high margin. There's no in between with Watford. Like when they beat us 4-1, that was just a horrible day, a horrible, horrible day. They even beat Everton on a high margin 5-2. That was the only wins they had in the season. The only 2 wins they had all season, it was against us. That was just our luck, of course. But
yeah.
I think Watford, their club needs to fix up massively. I really do. I think Claudio Ranieri, he did not do no favours getting into that club. I think he went there because I know he's friends with the owners, he's friends with the board, so I think he was in a way kind of doing them a favour. But he's such a brilliant manager. He's got such a good legacy at Leicester. He's got a legacy there at Chelsea. And it's like in a way, Watford's trying to tarnish it with how they've treated him. He didn't have that right squad for him anyway. And I think what Watford probably thought, getting Claudio Ranieri, we're going to be like the new Leicester. We're going to win the league. I think that's probably what they thought. I genuinely think that's what they thought. And it didn't settle to what it was. And Roy Hodgson was even more baffling than Claudio Ranieri, knowing that they've got basically a squad full of strikers, and Roy Hodgson's a defensive type manager. Is some of these strikers going to convert to centre backs? Are they going to convert to wing backs? What are they going to do? But I think Watford, the way they do treat the managers is absolutely appalling. To be honest, it's not right. I know some clubs get success keeping managers more short term. We've seen success from Chelsea having shorter term managers. They're not Chelsea though. They're not successful like Chelsea. So they need to build the team to stay into the Premier League. That is what their aim should be, being in the Premier League, because they'll make more money staying into the Premier League than they will getting relegated out of the Premier League. But I think that if they do, I don't think they have kept Roy Hodgson. They've got that Forest Green manager, like you've mentioned. So I think that's going to be a big step for him. And I do look at and think, is he going to struggle in the Championship, knowing that Forest Green was a League One, League Two, if I'm not mistaken?
League Two, yeah, League Two.
So coming from League Two to the Championship, even he has to adapt. So I think Watford, they may not potentially get promoted. It might be like West Brom for this season.
Yeah, I think Watford, I can't see him being back. I can't see him being back because they are a club which, seem to pull off. And was that Solskjaer's last match, that Watford game?
It was, yeah. And how ironic, the player who Ollie didn't want of Donna was the player who scored his last game.
Yeah. But, I can't see them being back. But, I'm confident, we're not a basket case like Watford, nowhere near. We're quite sensible, but we also invest. So that sets us in good stead. I think Leeds are going to be quite diminished because, of course, there's Rafinha who's leaving. There's Phillips that's already gone to Man City. The other club that is quite interesting at the moment, though, is Everton. And you look at the Everton squad on paper and you think they're pretty good. They've got a good side. What actually happened last season? Do you think that they could be in trouble?
It depends as well with the financial fair play because they're supposed to be getting a point reduction. If they get a point reduction, bye Everton. They'll be having their new swanky Goodison Park outside docks in the Championship. But I think with Everton, they do invest. They do, but they invest in the wrong areas. Rondon.
Yeah.
Rondon. Why say Rondon? You look at Townsend. You look at Damari Gray. You look at them type of players and think, why do you need them at Everton? But you're getting rid of your better players like James Rodriguez, who he was outstanding for Everton, and I think he improved Everton massively. But you look at Rafa Benitez when he came into Everton, he's a Liverpool man through and through. And it felt like in a kind of way that he came to Everton to relegate them because they went on a real downhill. And that's what I believe. I believe he came in to get them relegated, and because the board weren't having it in the end. Because I don't think the board had that bit of lack of ambition because realistically, under Claudio Ranieri, with that squad he had last season, if it weren't for injuries, they could have been in a top 7, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think Claudio Ancelotti, Carlo Ancelotti. Sorry, I don't know why I'm saying that. Claudio Ancelotti, with the squad he had, that could have gone far. I think it was a very weird choice for him going to Everton, but he done well at Everton what he'd done. Whereas Rafa Benitez just took it away in half a season. He got rid of like Luca and Dingley from selling in there to Aston Villa. And you wouldn't get rid of your best players. So that's why I genuinely do think he set him up to fail. Just because he doesn't like the club. And looking at Everton, why would you want to put a manager like him, knowing that he's gone to he's been at your rival club, he's been semi-successful at your rival club, just to come into your club? Like the board, you're reading about the board, none of them have the same opinion. Like, who was taking over Rafa Benitez? One said Frank Lampard, one said Sam Allardyce, one said a different manager. So it's like, who's actually making these decisions at Everton Football Club? Because everyone can't agree with what they're agreeing with. And I think if they do get the new ownership, I think it will work a lot better. It can't get any worse. But if they get that financial fair play against them, they're going to be screwed.
Well, hopefully there's 3 teams worse than the Cherries in the league. But thank you so much for coming on to the show, Maisy. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. All the very best to Manchester United for pushing your way up that league table. I'm sure Ten Hag will be an asset. You know, it sounds like he's going to be the right man. You know, fingers crossed to lead you forward. But hopefully, we can hang around a lot longer than just the one season. I'm sure that, you know, if we can eclipse 5 seasons in the Premier League, you know, we'll be absolutely delighted. We might even become a mainstay. You never know. But before you go, Maisy, do tell us how we can find your channel, because it is a fantastic channel. I have been on there myself as well. So go on.
Thanks for having me on, Greg. It's been a great discussion, and best of luck for Bournemouth coming into the new season. My YouTube channel is Devils United. I do Manchester United content for the men and the women's football, so you can catch me through there. I am trying to look at doing a little bit more different things coming into the new season, a bit more neutral content as well, because I know a lot of my viewers support different clubs. So I'm going to try to do a little bit more different something. But yeah, Devils United's my YouTube, and my Twitter is at 2_MUFC Maze.
Excellent. All the details will be in the description as well. So please do follow Maisy and also subscribe to Devils United. But thank you again, Maisy. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you for joining me on the show.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for joining me on this show. Please do remember to hit the like, the subscribe, and the bell button below to be alerted to any new videos that we do here on Up the Cherries in all departments. Also, please do remember to watch our recent videos. We recently had on the show Gareth Withers, who was discussing, is the Premier League competitive? We also had John Sinclair, who was discussing Newcastle under Sir Eddie Howe. We also had Al Gard talking about our transfer activity and what we need to do. And we also heard a bit from Chris from Leicester Till I Die, a bit about that Leicester story and the remarkable achievements in our first Premier League season. Also got a special show coming up tomorrow. To give you a little bit of a taster, just think the price of football, and we'll just be discussing football finances. We'll tell you who it is tomorrow once the video is released. But until the next one, up the cherries, and I'll see you then.